I shouldn't have noticed the way she smiled at me that afternoon. But once I did, I couldn't unsee it. It started in the hallway of my mom's house. A burst pipe had left half the kitchen floor soaked, and I was the only one around to help. Mom was at work, but her friend, was already there, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back, kneeling on the floor with a bucket like it wasn't beneath her. Her name was Clara. Late 40s, maybe? Sharp eyes that softened the moment she looked at you, and a voice that always seemed to land half a second later than you expected, low and careful, like she didn't want to take up too much space. I remember standing in the doorway longer than I should have, just watching her wring out the mop with strong, deliberate hands. She glanced up. "Don't just stare. Get me another towel." Her tone was brisk, but there was a twitch at the corner of her mouth. Half amusement. Half something else I couldn't place. I bent down beside her, grabbing one of the old rags from the counter. The air smelled faintly of damp wood and her perfume, subtle, like she tried not to wear too much. We worked in silence for a while, only the slosh of water between us. She broke it first. "Your mom tells me you've been busy. College, right?" "Yeah," I said, wringing out the towel harder than I needed to. "I just came back for a few days. Thought I'd help out." Clara nodded, not looking at me. "She's lucky you're here." I don't know why, but the way she said lucky made my chest tighten. She caught herself, too, pressing her lips together, shifting her weight as if she'd revealed more than she intended. For the next few minutes, I tried not to watch the way a strand of hair kept slipping loose from her bun, brushing against her cheek. I tried not to notice how close our knees came when we both reached for the same puddle. And then it happened. Our hands touched, just for a second, over the same rag. Neither of us pulled away immediately. Her breath caught. Mine did too. She finally let go and sat back on her heels, shaking her head. "Careful. Your mom will think I'm making you do all the work." I almost laughed, but it came out softer, like something else was caught in my throat. "I don't mind." Clara looked at me then, really looked at me. Her eyes lingered too long, like she was trying to read something she shouldn't even be looking for. The silence stretched. My pulse was louder than the dripping faucet. She cleared her throat, busying herself with the mop again, as if that tiny glance hadn't cracked the air between us. But the crack was there, no matter how much she tried to smooth it over. I leaned back against the counter, arms crossed, watching her. I shouldn't have, but I did. The way she avoided my eyes told me she knew it too. Finally, when the last of the water was gone and the kitchen looked almost normal again, she straightened. A smear of damp clung to her jeans, and she brushed at it absently, sighing. Then, just as she picked up her bag, she looked at me over her shoulder. Her smile was small, secretive. "I'm just your mom's friend," she said softly, letting the words hang like a warning, like a dare. And then, her voice dropped, almost a whisper. "Do you still want me?" I should have laughed it off. Told her she was joking, misheard, anything that would have made it safe again. But her words hung between us like smoke, impossible to ignore, impossible to breathe through. Clara broke eye contact first, sliding her bag onto her shoulder, but she didn't leave. She stood there, fingers tightening around the strap, waiting for me to say something. I didn't. I couldn't. She sighed, a small exhale that sounded almost like regret. "I shouldn't have said that. Why did you?" The words came out before I could stop them. Her eyes flicked to mine, sharp, startled, then softer. She hesitated, searching for an answer she didn't owe me. Finally she said, "Because sometimes I forget I'm supposed to be careful." Careful. That word carried more weight than the soaked floor beneath our feet. I wanted to ask what she meant, but I already knew. She was my mom's friend. A woman twice my age. Fresh from a divorce my mom had whispered about on the phone when she thought I wasn't listening. None of this should have even brushed the edges of possibility. And yet, I noticed everything. How she chewed the inside of her cheek when she was thinking. How the hem of her shirt was damp, clinging to her waist in a way that made me look too long. How her perfume seemed stronger now, not because she'd added more, but because I couldn't stop breathing her in. I caught myself clenching my fists just to keep them still. "Clara," I said, my voice low, almost unsteady. She shook her head quickly, cutting me off. "Don't. Whatever you're about to say, don't." Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the mop handle, though the floor was already clean. She gripped it too tightly, like it could anchor her. I stepped closer. Not touching her, just close enough that the air shifted. "I wasn't going to say anything bad." She gave a short, humorless laugh. "That's the problem. I'd believe you." The silence that followed was worse than anything spoken. It pressed down on us, thick, heavy, filled with everything neither of us dared name. I thought about walking out. About leaving the house before I did something I'd regret. But my feet didn't move. Instead, I studied her face, the fine lines near her eyes, the way she blinked too fast, like she wanted to hide how close she was to unraveling. "Clara," I tried again, softer this time. Her grip on the mop loosened. She leaned it against the wall and rubbed her hand over her forehead, finally letting the exhaustion show. "You don't understand. After the divorce, I'm not supposed to let anyone close. Not like this. Especially not you. Especially not me." The words landed heavy, and yet, underneath them, I heard something else. She wanted to. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Then why didn't you walk out the door?" Her breath caught. She looked at me, and for the first time, didn't look away. Then, deliberately, like she'd already lost the fight, she stepped forward and touched my arm. Just her fingertips, tracing down toward my wrist, barely there. "Stay a little longer," she whispered. Her hand lingered on my arm longer than it should have. Just fingertips, tracing lightly, enough to make my skin burn in a way I couldn't hide. I wanted to step back. I told myself I would. But instead, I found myself leaning into the touch, like it had been waiting there for me all along. "Clara," I whispered, though I wasn't sure what I meant to follow it with. "A warning? A plea?" Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. She let her hand fall, shaking her head as if to break a spell. "I don't know what I'm doing." "Me neither," I admitted. My voice cracked, too raw, too honest. The admission startled her, softened her shoulders. She sighed and sank into one of the kitchen chairs, rubbing her temple like she wanted to erase the last 10 minutes. I sat across from her without asking, because leaving the room suddenly felt impossible. For a while, the only sound was the faint drip of the faucet we hadn't fixed yet. Then, out of nowhere, she said, "I haven't let anyone touch me since the divorce." It came out small, almost ashamed, as if she hadn't meant to share it. My chest tightened. I didn't know how to respond. Every answer felt dangerous. So I stayed quiet, letting the words echo in the space between us. She looked up, meeting my eyes, and for a second, the kitchen felt too small, too intimate. I could see it in her expression. She regretted saying it, but part of her wanted me to know. I opened my mouth, ready to tell her something, anything, but before I could, her phone buzzed on the table. She flinched like she'd been caught. The screen lit up with my mom's name. Clara's hand hovered over it, frozen. The buzzing went on, relentless, filling the silence. I watched her face pale, watched her wrestle with the simple act of answering. Finally, she pressed the button and forced her voice steady. "Hey, no, it's fine. I'm still at your place. Yeah, he's here too. Helping." Her eyes flicked to me when she said helping, as if daring me to laugh at the understatement. I didn't. After a few more murmured reassurances, she hung up and placed the phone face down on the table. Her hand stayed there, flat against it, like she needed to keep it pinned. "That's why," she said quietly. "That's why this can't." She trailed off, unable to finish. I leaned forward before I realized it, my elbows on the table. "But it hasn't. Not yet." Her breath hitched. She didn't move, didn't answer, but her eyes betrayed her. I almost told her everything in that moment. How I couldn't stop watching her, how even the sound of her voice made the air feel heavier. Instead, I bit my lip hard enough to taste metal. She noticed. She always noticed. The chair scraped against the floor as she stood, restless, pacing toward the counter. Then she stopped, bracing herself against it, back turned to me. If you knew how many times I've almost... She didn't finish. She didn't have to. I stood too, taking one step closer then another, until I was near enough to see her shoulders trembling. She turned halfway, caught between retreat and surrender. And for a suspended moment, the air too charged, my pulse too loud, it felt like one more breath would push us over the line. The kitchen felt like it had shrunk around us. Every sound was too sharp, the hum of the fridge, the ticking clock above the door, my own heartbeat rushing in my ears. Clara stood with her back half turned, palms pressed to the counter like she needed the solid surface to keep her steady. I hovered a few feet away, trapped between stepping closer and walking out. Finally, she spoke. You don't know what you're doing. Her voice was quiet, but not unkind. I swallowed. Maybe not. But you do. She stiffened, shoulders rising like a wall. That's exactly why I should stop this. But she didn't move away. She didn't open the door or push me back. She just stayed there, trembling slightly, as if her body was betraying the words her mouth struggled to form. I can't stop thinking about you, I blurted. It wasn't planned, it burst out of me before I had the chance to cage it. Her head dropped, her hair falling forward to hide her face. She let out a shaky laugh, more pain than amused. You're not supposed to say things like that. Then why do you keep giving me reasons to? That made her look at me. Really look. And for the first time, I didn't see her as my mom's friend, or the woman who was supposed to be untouchable. I saw her as someone standing on the same ledge I was, terrified of falling but unable to step back. Do you have any idea what this would do to me? She asked, her voice breaking in the middle. To your mom? To you? I know, I said. My throat tightened, but I forced the words out. I know, and I still can't. I can't stop. The silence after that was brutal. I could see her chest rising and falling too fast, could see her fighting something inside herself. Slowly, almost against her will, she stepped toward me. Just one step. Enough to close the distance so I could feel her warmth. Her hand lifted, hovering near my face but stopping short. She didn't touch me. She just let her fingers hang there, trembling, like she wanted to but couldn't. I've already lost so much, she whispered. If I let this happen, and it ruins everything. I cut in, softer this time. Or it doesn't. Or it's the one thing that finally feels right. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Her hand dropped, brushing my chest lightly as it fell, accidental, or maybe not. The touch set off a shiver that ran straight through me. She froze, eyes wide, caught between retreat and surrender. Neither of us moved. Neither of us breathed. And in that suspended second, her whisper slipped out, raw and unguarded. What if I can't stop? The words hung there, heavy, impossible to take back. We just stared at each other, the room holding its breath with us. Her words, what if I can't stop, still hung in the air when the knock came. 3 sharp raps at the front door. We both jumped, the spell broken like glass shattering. Clara's hand flew back to her side, and I stepped away too fast, bumping into the chair behind me. The knock came again. Clara? You in there? It was my mom's voice. Clara went pale. She pressed a finger to her lips, silently begging me not to say a word. I nodded, my chest hammering. She crossed the kitchen in quick steps, smoothing her hair, wiping at her damp jeans like she could erase what had almost happened. Then, taking a steadying breath, she called out, Yeah, just give me a second. Her tone was bright, casual, but too high-pitched, too careful. I could hear the strain in it. She turned back to me, eyes wide, whispering fast. You can't be here. Not like this. My jaw tightened. So what am I supposed to do? Crawl out the window? The corner of her mouth twitched, not from humor but from panic. If you care about me. She stopped herself, her voice faltering on the word care. She tried again. If you care, then yes. Just this once. Before I could argue, she rushed to the door, cracked it open. Mom's voice carried faintly through the gap, cheerful, unsuspecting. Clara blocked most of the view, standing in the doorway like a shield. I couldn't make out every word, but I heard phrases. Water damage, thanks for helping, you look tired. Clara laughed too quickly at something, the sound brittle. Then I caught it. My mom's voice dropping lower, concerned. I know it's been hard since Mark left. But you don't have to go through it alone, you know? You've got us. Mark. The name hit me harder than I expected. Clara's ex-husband. The man who'd walked out months ago, leaving her raw, unsteady. Suddenly all the half-finished sentences, the way her hands shook, the guarded walls, it all clicked. She hadn't just been afraid of crossing some line with me. She was terrified of being left again. She closed the door gently after my mom left, leaning against it for a long moment, her forehead pressed to the wood. When she turned, she looked straight at me. Her eyes were shining, but not with anger. With something closer to grief. You remind me of him, she said, her voice trembling. Not in how you look, God, no. But in the way you make me feel seen. He used to do that. Before he stopped. I froze, unsure if it was a confession or a warning. Clara. She lifted her hand, silencing me. And that's why I can't let this happen. Because if I let myself lean on you, if I let myself believe, and then you walk away too? Her voice cracked on the last word. I stepped forward, heart pounding. What if I don't? The room went silent. Her breath hitched, her fingers curling tight against her palm. She stared at me like she didn't know whether to believe me, or run. Her eyes were still locked on mine, shimmering with something halfway between hope and fear. What if I don't? I said again, firmer this time. Clara laughed softly, but it wasn't amusement, it was disbelief, brittle and aching. You're 22. You don't even know what staying means yet. That's not fair. I shot back, my chest tight. You're the one who keeps telling me not to say things, not to feel things, but you're the one who won't let go either. She blinked, taken aback by the edge in my voice. For a moment, I thought I'd pushed too far. Then, slowly, she walked past me, sitting at the kitchen table again, folding her hands as if she needed them to stay still. You don't understand, she said quietly. When Mark left, it wasn't just losing him. It was losing the years I'd built around him. I don't have decades to waste anymore. I can't risk giving myself to someone who might wake up one day and realize he wants something younger, easier, simpler. Her words cut deep, but I forced myself to sit across from her, close enough that our knees almost touched. I don't want younger, I said. My voice shook, but I kept going. I want you. Even if it's complicated. Even if it's hard. I don't care if people talk, or if it scares me, or if you think I don't know what I'm doing, I still want you. Clara closed her eyes, breathing unevenly. For a long stretch, she didn't answer. The clock ticked. The house seemed to lean in, waiting. Finally, she whispered, You'll regret me. Then let me, I said. Her eyes opened at that, startled. I reached across the table, my hand trembling as it covered hers. For the first time, she didn't pull away. She stared at our joined hands like it was the most dangerous thing in the world, but her fingers slowly curled into mine, holding back with all the strength of someone terrified of losing again. Her voice broke when she finally spoke. If I let you in, I don't know if I'll survive it if you leave. I swallowed, my throat tight, and leaned closer. Then I won't. The silence that followed was heavier than any confession. It was filled with every word we hadn't said, every glance we'd avoided, every moment we'd tried not to cross. And in that silence, for the first time, she didn't fight it. Her shoulders sagged, the tension melting into something raw, unguarded. She looked at me not as my mom's friend, not as someone off limits, but as a woman, lonely, afraid, wanting. And when she finally leaned forward, resting her forehead against mine, it wasn't perfect or easy. It was trembling, tear-streaked, messy. But it was real. Either of us spoke. We didn't need to. The choice had already been made. The next morning, the house was quiet in a way that made me second-guess everything. I half expected Clara to be gone. Her things vanished, leaving nothing but damp towels in the sink and the ghost of her perfume in the air. Instead, she was at the kitchen table, hair loose around her shoulders, staring into a mug of coffee that had already gone cold. She didn't notice me at first. Or maybe she did, and she just wasn't ready to face me. Either way, I stood there for a long time, wondering if what happened between us had been a mistake, if the weight of it would crush her before it even had the chance to mean something. Finally, she looked up. "You're still here." It wasn't a question, but it sounded like one. "I told you," I said softly, sliding into the chair across from her. "I'm not going anywhere." Clara's eyes lingered on mine, searching for cracks, for signs I didn't mean it. She looked tired, older somehow, like the night had taken more out of her than she wanted to admit. But there was something else there too, something softer, something almost relieved. "You don't know how much I want to believe that," she whispered. I reached across the table, taking her hand the same way I had last night. Only this time, she didn't hesitate. Her fingers threaded through mine with certainty, as if she'd finally stopped fighting the pull that had been there from the start. And in that moment, I realized the truth. What scared her wasn't me, or my age, or what people might say. What scared her was that for the first time in years, she actually wanted something for herself. "Then let yourself," I said quietly. She blinked, and a single tear slipped down her cheek. But she didn't pull away. We sat there for a long time, saying nothing, letting the morning light fill the silence between us. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't simple, but it was ours. When she finally spoke again, her voice was steadier. "Maybe this isn't about what I'm supposed to do. Maybe it's about what I need." "And what do you need?" I asked. She squeezed my hand, eyes locking with mine. "You." The words were fragile, but real. And they were enough. Weeks later, when I thought back on that night, I didn't remember the panic or the fear. I remembered the way her hand shook when it touched mine, the way her voice cracked when she finally admitted the truth. And I remembered the look in her eyes when she realized she wasn't alone anymore. That was the moment everything changed, not just for her, but for me too. Because wanting her wasn't about crossing lines or breaking rules. It was about choosing each other, even when it didn't make sense to anyone else. And for the first time, I knew I wouldn't regret it. Sparkles, did you enjoy the story? Thought Balloon, what kind of stories would you like to hear next?